Aloha and welcome to a Hanakako on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcasting Network. I'm Joe Kent, Vice President of Research and Development at the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, filling in for Dr. Keli'i Akina, President of the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. At the Grassroots Institute, we love to say a Hanakako, which means let's work together. And today we're going to work together talking about business in Hawaii. What does it take to start a business? Have you ever tried? A lot of business owners tell us at Grassroots that it can be very difficult, especially in this state. Well, we're here today to talk to a business owner about what it really takes. Hideo Simon is the co-owner of Square Barrels Restaurant at 1001 Bishop Street in downtown Honolulu. Welcome, Hideo.
Welcome. Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. So, well, before we get into the maze and the labyrinth of what it takes to start a business, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? What's your background?
So I was born and sort of raised in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born in Palo Alto, grew up there until about, I want to say 12 years old. We moved to Taiwan, of all places, Taipei, Taiwan. Lived there for a couple of years, and then my folks decided to move to Hawaii. So we came to Hawaii when I was in high school. I went through Kaimuki High School. After graduating there, I went to the UH system and graduated from UH Manoa in 1996. After that, I spent about a year after that. I did end up going back to Northern California, and I worked in tech for a little bit for a company called Oracle. And then moved up and down the west side, west coast with my wife. We got married and we lived in LA and San Francisco, Bay Area, LA, and then back again. And then eventually, after having our second child, we decided that, because we decided we wanted to open a restaurant at some point. And the original idea was in San Francisco, but it just didn't seem like we were going to be able to make it work without my parents and then her mom around to help. So we moved back to Hawaii.
So what inspired you to want to start a restaurant in the first place? I mean, from working at Oracle to
Right. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur, as far as I can remember. I kept talking about how I was going to open this kind of business, or I was going to do this, that, and the other, to the point where my dad, he wasn't real excited about the ideas, but he bought me some books on how to kind of get to that point. So I think Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, those kinds of books that kind of self-help and figure it out for yourself. So I started reading those books when I was in middle school, and then in high school I started like a little skateboard company and started all these different things. And while living in California, my wife, well, actually, I take that back. My wife was working in restaurants for as long as I can remember, since we started dating, which was back in 1996, I think.
You started jobs back on the East Coast as well, or excuse me, West Coast.
Right. Well, she worked in Hawaii, and then she worked in California, up and down the West Coast for different restaurants. Sure. I started, my very first job was for Jack in the Box. So I've got a big love for burgers, and that was probably not a good situation for a 14-year-old to be working at a place where he loves to eat their food.
And now you started Square Barrels, which is a burger joint, but it's a beer and burger joint.
Beer and burger, because I love beer. I mean, those are my two favorite things. Is to grab a burger and a beer for my pauhana, and then just call it a night. So
when you're selecting the food lineup, the beers and the burgers, what inspired you to do the selection and the tone on the inside that you have there?
Oh, for the restaurant itself?
The restaurant, yeah.
Well, it has a little bit to do with, and that's pretty cool because you can
we
see.
can see it, right? We're here, here we are in Square
pull
Barrels.
Of taps.
Yeah.
So the idea behind it, because living in San Francisco Bay Area, we went to all these different places, and just growing up in that area kind of feel like this is more closer to home to me. You know, the craft beer, the scene in San Francisco is out of control. It isn't like, wow, they have 24 taps of craft beer. In San Francisco, it's, they got 24 taps. I mean,
Okay,
but
so
what is it? What are they
normal
really
thing.
doing? Because
Yeah.
that's just part of the requirement of having beer on your menu. You know,
Right,
so
right.
that's not the craziest part about this venue. The great part about it is that, you know, we are doing craft beer and we try to do a lot of it local, but we also want to be worldly about it. You know, we want flavors from all over the place. My wife is Korean. She was raised, you know, she grew up here in Hawaii, but she's Korean. And I love Korean food, so that's, you know, that was a big part of, you know, just one of the burgers that we have is called the bibimbap, which is it's like a bibimbap in a burger form, you know. So
Okay.
that's the idea
You've got
behind it.
sort of eclectic styles all sort
Yes.
of mixed together, but with a base of the San Francisco feel maybe. And
Right. Well, the decor is definitely that San Francisco feel
Yeah.
because it's sort of industrial meets Victorian.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the ceiling tiles, it's
Yeah,
like the high white, and then in the back room we have these high, sort of taller wainscoting and tall columns and stuff like that.
Okay, so,
yeah.
you know, I heard this quote that if you're an entrepreneur, you basically just have to be obsessed
Yes.
with things. Right?
Yes,
you have
that's
to be
true.
obsessed with, well, you know, serving your customers well and trying to impress people, and but also, you know, you're talking about these different styles that you pick up and everything.
Right.
What is that? Would you call that maybe a love or just an obsession within yourself to do that as well? Or?
For sure. I mean, I think it has to be the person trying to get that new business going or that new idea going. It has to be a person who's somewhat contagious about their energy, or else it just falls off to the
Right.
wayside, right? It's like, well, I could be an amazing accountant, right? And I'm going to start this restaurant company, and the books are going to look fantastic all the time. It's like, yes,
That's
our
right.
reports are
Yeah.
always perfect.
All the boxes are checked. And
Yes,
all the,
right.
everything's filled out. Okay.
But if I have a passion for numbers, then it's just not going to work out that way, right? It's got to be, you got to have some kind of passion for whatever it is that you're trying to convey. And in this case, I got a passion for burgers and beer because I've been, as far as I can remember, as long as I can remember, I've had burgers and beer on my, you know, my own personal menu as
Yeah.
much as I possibly can. Of course, my wife hates it. She'll constantly beat me up about, like, well, if we can't just have pizza and burgers every night. I'm like, well, we can, but I can understand that, you know, if
Okay,
you
when
want to have some
started
other stuff.
business about it, and
Yeah.
sounds like you're so passionate about
Yes,
this
yes.
that you even took the steps to get through the process to become a business, which is pretty daunting in
Yes,
Hawaii.
yes.
So what does it take to start a business in Hawaii?
Well, I guess I may write a book about it at some point because there is so many things.
Yeah.
But you know, there's this. I mean, the simple steps are obviously you got to get yourself a general excise tax license,
Okay.
or you got to get yourself if you're going to have employees, you got to get your DOL and
Sure.
your Department of Labor number, and you've got to get health insurance for your full timers. You got to get, you know, there's. In every single direction of every single part of your business, there's a number of steps that have to be taken, and it is very daunting. It is
It's almost
very
like
difficult.
entering a maze, except that instead of just entering the maze, the entrances are surrounding you,
Yes,
and
right.
you have to go down all of these
Right.
different paths at
Right.
the same time, in a way. And so
That's a good analogy.
You went, you got the GE tax license, and you've got the standard business thing, but
Mm-hmm.
then you also wanted to start a business in that building, in the Square Barrels building, which is on
Bishop Square, yeah.
1001 Bishop Square.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
why would you need a building permit if the building's already built?
Well, they have the building. They had the building permitted when they built the actual structure, and then they had a restaurant there. It was Che Pasta, which was just prior to us. And then, so when we walked into the space, we weren't going to use exactly what they had already established.
Sure, you're going to renovate, and you're going to make it your own.
Right, we need to customize it. So when you do that, when you start taking down walls, or you start moving walls, or you start moving outlets, plumbing, all of those things, then they need to know, and they should know, the Department of Permitting and Planning,
right.
The DPP, they need to know that you're using professionals who know what they're doing and that you're following code. Because if you don't, then you're going to end up, I could, if I came in there and I was like, oh, well, let me just use some plastic pipes or something like that, and then all of a sudden you got this geyser blowing up through the wall or whatever.
Okay.
I mean, that's
So
pretty common sense.
We want to make sure that everything is to code, even
Yes.
if you're shifting things around within an already built building.
Correct.
But
correct.
it is, though, an extra step that business owners face in Hawaii. Well, many places across the country, but in
Right.
Hawaii, though, especially here in Honolulu,
Yes.
it seems to be particularly onerous to try to get through that maze for the permitting process.
It is. And the other, I mean, we talked about the labyrinth. The thing that is tough for somebody like me who loves the craft, for instance. I love burgers and beer, and this is all I want to do. You need to become an expert at the process of, just building a business. If you're indeed an entrepreneur that just wants to build this business. And it's safe to say, like, okay, well, you're going to need a general contractor to do your construction anyway, but somebody's got to coordinate that, right? Somebody's got to be able to put those things out for bid and be able to say, like, okay, well, this is what we need. And of course, you're going to have an architect. An architect's going to know their stuff as far as regulation and the drawings, the schematics, everything that goes in, that is involved with the actual building the structure.
Right, so you're saying that there's all these specialists who know about all these different specialties around starting a business, but
Right.
someone still needs to be right in the center,
Yep.
Being the traffic cop and putting all these things together.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And there's a lot of intertwining between these different sides as well that perhaps the architect doesn't know about. Well, the permits also need to be supplied to the health department.
Okay.
And then vice versa. The health department needs to give an okay for this, or needs to say, like, well, your layout needs another mop sink over here or something like that.
Right.
So now you've got all of these different directions you have to do, but you have to be able to intertwine them however they need to be intertwined, and that can just be
all these agencies, and you might think that, okay, if I just work with one agency
Right.
and I get everything done right here,
Yep.
then get that plate spinning,
Sure.
then I can go to these other plates and spin them. But the thing is, you have to keep all the plates spinning at the same time, and in
Indeed.
fact, the plates have to communicate with
Right.
each other,
Right.
and this one has to know what that one's doing, and
Exactly.
et cetera. So it's a lot more complicated than it seems.
And the issue is timing too, because if I just concentrate on this one now,
Right.
then it'll take me 5 years to open this restaurant.
Right,
Because this person needs to have
Yeah.
these drawings now
Yeah.
so that they can, then the clock starts, right? Like
Yeah.
like liquor commission, for instance. Liquor commission, my liquor license took approximately 6 months to approach.
We'll actually talk about
Okay.
that liquor commission right when we come back
Okay.
on a break. You're listening to a Hanaka Ko on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcasting Network. Don't go away.
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, which streams live on thinktechhawaii.com, uploads to youtube.com, and broadcasts on cable OC16 and Alelo 54. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, my name is Justina Spiritu, and I am the co-host of Hawaii Farmers Series. This is my co-host, Matthew Johnson, and you can catch us every Thursday at 4 p.m. at thinktechhawaii.com. What do we talk about, Matt?
So on Hawaii Farmers Series, we're going to be bringing on the farmers and also supporter of farmers, including restaurants, caterers, as well as government supporters and nonprofits to hear their background stories and understanding our local ag community just a little bit better.
Yeah, essentially, there's a lot more that goes into farming and the local food community beyond just producing the food. And we want to feature and get the background story on all these folks and see how we all work together as a community. So join us every Thursday. Aloha.
We're back, and you're listening to a Hanakako on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcasting Network. I'm Joe Kent, Vice President of Research and Development at the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, filling in for Dr. Kelihi Akina, President of the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. And today we're talking about burgers and beer and permits. And we're here with Hideo Simon, the co-owner of Square Barrels Restaurant. So when we last left off, you were starting to talk about the beer part of this. So and that requires government interplay as well, probably a liquor license.
Absolutely.
So how do you do that?
Okay, so the liquor license, you've got to have your landlord approval. Obviously, the landlord's got to let the liquor commission know that they are authorizing you to apply for a liquor license.
Hey, we're about to apply.
Right.
Okay.
So the landlord give you approval, and then there's a number of steps, and there's great liquor license lawyers out there.
Lawyers, liquor license lawyers.
Lawyers.
Okay. Wow.
And they're some of them are a little bit more hands off, or some a little bit more hands on. I don't know. I obviously am not an expert at finding a liquor license lawyer, but. Luckily, we have a fantastic one, Naomi. She expedited our application the best it possibly could have been.
Great.
Every single step of the way, and she always gave me a heads up as to what was going to happen next, and that was fantastic. And she also gave me a heads up, and hey, just want you to know it's going to take a while, so we need to get this ball rolling right away.
So it sounds like there's all these different agencies that serve to simply interplay with the government and the business owner.
Yes.
Especially a new business owner. Well, it doesn't even have to be new.
Right.
I mean, even veterans.
Even experts,
Even experts need all the help they can get in dealing with this maze.
Exactly.
So can we move to the permitting process again? So
Sure.
I want to go just back to the basic, the steps. Let's say that I was going to start a business, a brand new business in a building, and let's say I wanted to renovate and move some things around. I want the sink over here, and I want the plug down there, and I want to raise the ceilings or whatever. So I go to the permitting department and just ask them for a building permit? Is that it, or how do I go through that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I'll try to recall as much as I can, because with some of the, I've applied for several permits in the past, and I've also heard, of course, you're among other entrepreneurs or other business owners, and you ask questions about, well, what did you do, or what did you do? And
it's almost like a support group.
Yeah, it's like a support group. So of course, those are some of the steps that you take. Now in Hawaii, we have what they call the third-party review, which is, or expedited, third-party expedited, or permitting expedited. I don't even know.
But you're talking about a third party that
there's-
helps you expedite your permit.
Exactly.
And it's a private entity
It's private, yes.
that interfaces with the public entity, the government.
Right.
Okay, I see.
So where maybe an architect might be one who kind of quarterbacks the whole process from start to finish, or even a draftsman sometimes would do these sorts of things. Now they have these third-party reviews, and they're not cheap. They cost some money.
Right.
And they should get paid fairly well for it, because they're dealing with massive amounts of regulation, as long as they're qualified for it, right?
But at the same time, though, anybody who tries to deal with this, that's a lot of money for you to pay, and it's a lot of risk that you're taking on, because you have to think in the future.
Right.
I expect to make this amount of money.
Yes.
And I hope that that's true.
Yes.
Enough for me to pay them now.
That's correct.
That's correct. Tell me about the risk that you undertake waiting for this process to go through.
Well, there's a risk of rent. First of all, I mean, it's a clock, right? As soon as you sign your lease, you got to get this stuff going, right? and we signed our lease. I'm pretty sure it was July 1st was the first day of basically the lease commencing.
Okay.
So
So the clock starts.
Starts
Okay,
on
yeah.
July 1st. Granted, you know, some landlords are going to give you some time to get this stuff done. So of course, you in the beginning you're like, okay, well that seems like a long time. I've got plenty of time to work with. But then when you start getting into it, then it's like, oh my God, this is taking so long that I don't know if I'm going to even be able to reach that point. And the truth is, yeah, I mean, our deadlines had come and gone.
If the clock runs out,
Yeah.
then you're sunk. then.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you're sunk, or if you got some reserve, then you're going to start paying rent or whatever. But I mean, you've got to have a
Right.
significant reserve to be able to say, like, I'm gonna be able to make it in the end. But if you don't have that backing, right?
Yeah.
You know, in this situation, then you will sink.
I was reading an article in the recent Hawaii, or actually this is from last year, Hawaii Business Magazine, Stuck in Permit Purgatory. This is George Atta, the director of the Department of Planning and Permitting. And in the article, you're here in the article as well.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the time it takes to wait for a permit. You say it took you 6 months, is that correct? Or
Well,
it could have.
it took me more than 6 months.
Even more than
actually.
6 months.
But as far as like the process within the DPP, I think it did take me 6 months. Yeah, from the very start of our process, or application to the very end. So
Right, and that's time that you're paying employees.
You're paying your employees. You're paying you're gonna start paying rent. You're gonna it's a
You're
balancing
paying for
act.
the third party people to
You're
help
paying for
you.
the third party to help. Yes.
Wow, and the permitting fees and
And
there's
all
fees
that,
as
yeah.
well too.
And yes, that I mean, you pay for your minutes basically,
Right.
if you think about it, because every single minute that you've got the lights on, the hood's on, and you're
Right.
testing your kitchen out, or you bring on employees because you told them they need to come in at X day or whatever, and then you're still kind of like waiting for this next move or the
Yeah.
next thing or something like that, and you're just it's high stress.
High stress.
And I'm not saying that we're trying to. I don't think it's the way it should be. I think it should be. We're the United States, or we want people like the average person to be able to say, like, I think we could really use a really good burger and
Right.
beer place.
Yeah, well,
you
I
know?
mean, the word entrepreneur, if you go out on the street today and say, what do you think of the word entrepreneur? People say, great, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you know one?
Right.
And people love entrepreneurs because they're the people out there who are actually trying to dream the dreams
Right.
that are going to help make our world a better place.
Right.
And these are people that we're unfortunately have to experience a lot of waiting
Yes.
and risk in Hawaii.
Yes.
Now, but we're not really trying to, criticize so much because there is some solutions to these problems. Basically,
Right.
this is a knowledge problem.
Mhm.
Many people, business owners in Hawaii, maybe don't know how to get through this kind of process.
Right.
And we want to help them. So, what do you see as some of the first steps maybe to trying to get
Looking for
through?
solutions.
Yeah, looking for solutions. Yeah.
Well, I think back to when I was a kid. When I was, I think I was 15 years old, I was trying to start my own little skateboard company. And I had called in to some department, and then they had, I think it was the SBA. I called into the Small Business Administration.
Okay, wait, hang on.
Yeah.
You were a kid.
Right.
Trying to start a skateboard company.
Yes, right.
Okay,
So I just want to make sure I had the
can't get over
proper
that.
licensing for it.
Okay. All right.
So they had referred me to an office on Nimitz, and I'm drawing a blank
Right.
as to what it was. I think it was like SB, Small Business Action Center, SBAC, something like
Okay.
that. And that group. Oh, sorry, I just dropped something. That group was great because when I walked in and I told them what I was trying to do, they said, okay, well, this is what you need to do. You need to
Okay,
fill out this
so-
form, do that and the other.
So there was a group out there to help you.
Right, and that was
see.
great. It was great. They kind of laid it out, and also because I was 15 years old walking into this place, they were probably more like, okay, well, let's see if we can help this
Yeah,
kid
right,
out.
right,
you know?
right. Yeah.
So I learned a few things just by talking to that little office. I think for a skateboard company, maybe it was just a little bit easier. You know, I was kind of working from home.
Sure.
You know, I needed a license to sell stuff,
Okay.
of course, so I could pay my taxes and whatnot. But
You were dealing with range cooking and
yeah,
like
right.
all
I
that.
wasn't dealing with anything more than just, you know, maybe some T-shirts and
Right.
and getting some skateboards built or made in LA.
Mhm.
So that was easy enough. But I think as you get into different types of businesses, you know, the liability changes. Obviously, if you're selling alcohol, you know, there's some consideration there.
Sure.
Or if it's a brick and mortar where you've got 9 more floors above you, you know, there's all other kinds of considerations. And I get that. That's important that, you know, us as educated modern day people need to know that there are regulations and there's information that's available to us so that we can make the proper decisions on what it is, what kind of plumbing do we need in this scenario, or what
Right.
kind of electricity we need in this scenario. But the problem is that there is all of these regulations, and I'm not trying to say like, okay, well, let's deregulate, let's get rid of all these rules. I'm trying to say that, yes, we need to use this information, but we need to build a way for somebody like me who is more about the craft.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I love craft beer, I love craft burgers. This person needs to be able to share that with the world. Let's figure out a way to do that. Let's get an organization maybe it's just as simple as what they call regulation reception. You know, like this is a reception desk for entrepreneurs
Okay.
to walk up to and
Right.
say like, this is the type of business that I'm going to open. What do I need to do? And then they'll just basically say, you're going to need to talk to this
I see.
department for this.
You know, I went to a town the other, or actually, that was last year, and it was called Sandy Springs, and this town privatized their permitting department. And so
entire department?
The entire department. They
Wow.
just ran it with a private company. They said, here, we're just going to contract this out.
Yeah.
And actually, people would get their permits in a couple days. It
Yeah.
would sail through the department, and if the department could make could get the permits out with high quality and
Yeah.
fast,
Right.
then the department would make a profit.
Absolutely.
And so they set it up in the contract a certain way.
Yes.
And so I thought, I wonder if that kind of thing would work here. It almost sounds similar to what you're talking about. Why don't we have some sort of conglomeration to some sort of traffic cop that
Sure.
directs the traffic for us?
Right.
And that way, all we have to do is minimal effort, and then it will sail through the department quicker.
Yes. I think that's a great idea. The idea is, and we were just talking about this a little while ago, was you want businesses to thrive. You want them to hire people and make a profit and pay some taxes. You know, that's what the government should. I mean, it's the goal of them to make sure the businesses are doing well,
Right.
because that's how they make, or that's how they survive. Right.
Well, we're going to talk more about how to get more businesses to survive when we come back. You're listening to E Hanaka Ko on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcasting Network. Don't go away.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on E Hanaka Ko, a weekly program on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. E Hanaka Ko means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at E Hanaka Ko. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to Think Tech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're E Hanaka Ko, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Aloha, and welcome back to the Think Tech Hawaii Broadcasting Network. We're broadcasting every week on Monday at this time. And I really want to thank Think Tech Hawaii and Jay Fidel and the staff there. They produce so many hours of content that's flown all over the world, and it makes a big difference. If you'd like to tweet us, you can tweet at ThinkTechHi, that's ThinkTechHI, and or you can find our YouTube page. Well, we're here today talking with Hideo Simon, the co-owner of Square Barrels Restaurant, and we're talking about the passion for burgers and beer, but the hurdles that it takes to get there. And one of those hurdles is the permitting department and other regulations of the government. So Hideo, in this article, we mentioned it earlier, the Hawaii business stuck in permit purgatory. It shows how many businesses are trapped in the maze of permitting. Even the director of the permitting department says that it takes just so long to get through the department. And within this article, they're basically trying to scramble for ideas of how can we make this more efficient. One of the ideas they had is, well, maybe if we make it electronic, maybe if we just make it so people can go online and do the permit that way, then it would. Another idea is, well, right now you have to give the permit to 3 different agencies at the same time, and each of the agencies may not know if one of the drafts was changed, and so you have to keep going back and forth and saying, oh, we changed it and everything. Do you think sort of technical fixes are the solution to this problem?
I think they could help. They've done a lot. You can kind of see your permit in process when you look at their website, the DPP website. Okay. Yeah, you kind of see where you stand, I guess. But then, I mean, there's a lot of holes in that. There was at one point where we were waiting for, what do they call it, the site review, or not site review, but we were waiting for them to come and inspect and we just didn't know where we stood at that point.
I see.
It's just kind of like that.
Waiting. Well, I think we're waiting for an inspector here, and I wonder if he's going to show up. Right. And did he show up eventually, or?
No, it wasn't so much waiting for the inspector, because once we get the green light to contact the inspector, they usually show up within a 48-hour period or something like that. So if the electrician calls and says, okay, we've got this number.
But you're waiting for the green light.
Yes, right. You're waiting for that. And in order to get to there, then they've got to review a number of different things. And meanwhile, you got to get building, right? I mean, you can't just wait around waiting for your permits and stuff.
Another problem they say in this article is, this is the director of the permitting department says there aren't enough inspectors. So, even, I guess they're saying even the people at the department, there just aren't enough people to deal with all these permits that are flying around.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I think it's interesting because the contractors know all the inspectors, and if one of them retires and then a new one comes on or whatever, they already know what to expect because there's only a handful of them, right? So then they're all kind of competing for them to come down.
But what does this do at the end of the day? So we've got the lack of inspectors, the different tangle of regulation and bureaucracy, the time it takes to get through the process, the risk involved. What is when you pile all this up for a local business owner, what does this do to local business in Hawaii, to our economy?
It kills it. I mean, it makes it more expensive, obviously, but it kills the desire. It kills the spirit, right? My first thing out of my mouth when somebody comes to me and says, okay, well, when are you gonna open the next one or whatever, And then my first thing is like, I don't think I'm gonna do it. I think this is it. This is it for me. Unless somebody comes to me and says, hey, we love your spirit. Here's $10 million. What am I gonna do? I can't afford it, for one thing, because it does. Like you said earlier, it's like you got all this money into it. It's got to make sense for the long term, but your lease is only X amount of time too, right? So am I going to make a profit by the end of my 10-year lease, or however long your lease is, based on how much money I'm throwing into this scenario? And oftentimes it just doesn't work out because it doesn't.
And you want the price of your food and your establishment to be friendly to customers
Absolutely,
as well.
absolutely.
So,
That's another part of it for sure. Because if I want to make it affordable, so my margins are going to be tight, but at the same time I've got all this money invested into it. I mean, I'm not trying to run a charity or anything like that. It's like, okay, well, we're free burgers for everybody. You know, I gotta think like a businessman or businesswoman, but I gotta think smart, and when you pencil it out, it's just maybe not such a smart idea, you know? And that's the unfortunate part about it.
Have you talked to other business owners who maybe the clock ran out on them for different projects, or maybe it may run out? What kind of things are other people saying?
Yeah, sometimes the clock runs out for people. Sometimes they don't. But a lot of times when they do, or at least when it's getting tight, then they'll go searching for money. I mean, that's what you got to do, right? Otherwise, all that you've done so far is going to be worth nothing, right? So they'll go looking for money, maybe take on another partner or whatever. But if you don't have that, or if your timeline is that tight, then you could end up on the street, and you just have nothing.
Right.
And
at the end of the day, that's another benefit that entrepreneurs provide to the community is jobs for people. You know,
absolutely.
That's what so many people are saying, oh, I'm trying to find a job in Hawaii and I'd love to live there. And you know, if only I could find a job. Well, this is something that entrepreneurs provide. I mean, you know, how many jobs may be lost if entrepreneurs just decide to just give up and throw in the towel. So yeah, and
it just trickles down. It just trickles down. It's like the more restaurants you have, the more jobs that you have available, then the pay becomes more competitive as well. So because I want these really skillful sets,
you want the good
workers,
workers,
those kinds of things. So it just piles and piles and piles upon each other. But if you only have 3 restaurants on the entire island and you've got 700 people that can do that job, you're going to pay them minimum wage, or you're going to pay them very low because you can, because they're all looking for the same job. So maybe your margins might be better. Who knows, right? Because there's only a few restaurants to work with. But if you've got all these really cool restaurants, everybody's doing their unusual, new, different things and everything like that, and then you've got all these skilled employees that are getting paid well enough to be able to enjoy that as well. Because
you're saying that the more competition there is in the market, then the higher pay actually rises for people, and the more jobs there are, then the more competition there is for the worker.
Absolutely.
Actually. So
it's commerce in general, right? You just want you want to incubate the commerce, and that's there's venture capitalists out there who they have a handful of money that they put into certain industries or something like that. What we need to do is maybe not just restaurant, but I mean we need to look at the entire commerce of Hawaii, the state, and be able to say, like, look, this is where we need to fix things, or at city and county level too. I mean it's not just about the state. It's a city county level. We need to figure out how are we going to make life easy, not easy, but more approachable, more
for the entrepreneur
profitable.
To be able to get through this process. And you came up with a couple suggestions in the article. You said perhaps if your permit isn't reviewed within a certain amount of time, then maybe there's some sort of consequence, meaning like, well, maybe the permit would just be approved, or if the inspector doesn't show up, then maybe it's just rubber stamped or something like that.
So, by default, the pressure's got to be it's got to be shared. If you're going to give me all of these regulations, then you've got to have some way to humanly be able to handle the enforcement of those regulations. And that's got to be on that side, or else like I said, it's just are we the ones that are just going to get burned in the end, and we can't afford to do that. Not now, not ever really. We need to promote the idea of we're holding people accountable for getting things done. In the private sector, there's
Right. If you don't do your job, let's say that
Yeah.
you took a long time to serve your customer or something. Let's
Right.
say your customer's waiting on an order and it take a long time, then
Right.
what would happen? Right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. If you come up short and you said you were going to deliver such and such, then you lose the game. I mean, and you don't come up by the deadline, you're done. That's
Right,
it.
right.
And you lost.
So that this might be
Yes,
a good idea because
absolutely.
at the end of the day, when entrepreneurs can get through the system, when they can finally get through the process, and actually have a chance to start a business, what does that do to? Well, you've seen the success at your store. What does that look like?
But it looks good
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always the real picture at some point. I walk out from the kitchen and I look at the floor is busy, there's customers, they're all smiling, laughing, having a great time, just enjoying the food and the drinks and the atmosphere. And then just standing there for a minute and be able to say, like, this is exactly what I had in mind. And now it's actually happened.
Yeah.
And that really is the driving force. I can honestly say I haven't gotten that point yet. Not everything is there yet, but
What are you talking about? I went there.
Yeah,
It's a fantastic restaurant. Are you kidding me? Everyone I talk to says that you got to try this restaurant. Square Barrels is awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
Yeah.
But we're really close, and part of it has to do with having the right team and those kinds of things too, and people who love the craft just as much as you do. That's where we need to be, and like I said, we're very close.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say maybe this summer I might just have that walk and be able to say, like, you know what, fantastic.
Yeah, well,
So-
that's another thing that strikes me is many people think that entrepreneurs or business owners maybe are careless, or they have their own image of it. But from what I've found, business owners, entrepreneurs like you are very self-critical and very just striving so hard.
Right,
You
right.
just think so hard about
Yeah.
how can I serve my customer well, and
Right.
it almost like I can see you maybe losing sleep over this.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, most recently we had the opportunity to be a part of the Honolulu Brewers Festival, and the burger that we put out was a great burger. It was this spicy, what we call the backyard cookout, and people loved it, and it was great. But it was always in the back of your head, like, how are they going to love this? Are they going to love this? And it's like when they finally do say they love it, then you're like, okay, well then it was all worth it. But I lost a lot of sleep over the
really?
last few days
Over a
because
burger?
Yeah, over a burger, but over our execution. Like, do we have everything we need for it? Do we line up everything? Do we prep enough? Do we do all of these things? Those are all, and they're big parts of. In the mind of the chef too. The chef is thinking, worrying about all of those little details as well. And it's a part of all of us at the top. I think you need that from even your the top level management, but ultimately what it comes down to is it's all in your head, and you are stressing over, but it's kind of a necessity.
But it's a stress, though, that leads to happiness for
Yes.
some people. I mean, I know some people say, "Oh, I'm so stressed. I hate that."
Yeah.
But just think how great it is to
Right.
have your own restaurant and to make this dream come true. It's
Yes.
fantastic. It's inspiring. So, thank you so much for creating a great restaurant that we can all go to.
Thank you,
And
thank you.
Thanks so much for having on the show. For being on the show.
I appreciate that.
And you're watching Think Tech Hawaii, Ehana Kako on the Think Tech Broadcasting Network. I'm Joe Kent, Vice President of Research and Development. Thanks so much for watching. Aloha.